I think it's pronounced Crew 90.
What's up, boys and girls? It's your boy Johnny, aka Crew 90, and today I want to tell you all a funny story from when I was a teenager. And I think it's a funny story. Hopefully it's not just because the story is about me. Hopefully you guys will find it funny as well. So I guess we'll see. But let's go. So when I was about 15 all the way up until I was around 20-ish, I was very good friends with a guy that, well, let's call him Billy Bob. So with a guy named Billy Bob. And he and I were just like inseparable. We were closer than brothers, and we were constantly together. And we're still friends to this day, but at this point in our life, we literally were never where the other person wasn't. So my parents growing up were very strict. Basically, they had a no tolerance policy. So like no parties, no drinking, no pot, no sex. Whereas his parents were more of like a everything in moderation type of parenting. As was typical, it was a Saturday night. I was hanging out with him. That was like how it always was. And so I had just told my parents that I was going to be hanging out with Billy Bob. He, in fact, had told his parents that he was going to a party. And so my parents knew I was going to be staying the night with him. They just didn't know we were going to go to a party first. So we get to the party, and it's like an unwritten rule of thumb around here, that you don't park in front of the house that's having the party. As a general rule of thumb, you just kind of park elsewhere. You don't even park on the same street, because the number one dead giveaway that there's a house party is if there's 100 cars all parked in front of one house or all on the same street. So this was back before phones had GPS, so we map quested the house. We found where it was, we drove there, and then once we found the house, we drove up about 6 blocks and parked on an entirely different street, and we walked back. Now the thing is, this was like the most windy, curvy neighborhood that I had ever seen. It was absolutely sprawling. It was like a golf community. So, the neighborhood was basically built around a golf course, and completely sober, we had trouble finding our way back to the house from where we parked his truck. So we get to the house, we go in, we know a couple people there. Predominantly, we just know the friend of the host, and that's the person that actually had invited us, but there's a couple other people there that we know. So typically our little game plan was we always stopped drinking around midnight. That way we could guarantee we were fully sober by the time the party ended. That was just what me and Billy Bob, we did. That was our personal rule that we had for each other. And so in exchange, though, when we started drinking, when we first would get to the parties, we would drink very heavily and very quickly in order to get as drunk as possible in the little time that we would allot ourselves to actually drink. So we got to the party around like 8. By 9, we were pretty much drunk. So for whatever reason, he and I made our way out to the back patio, and it was like you went through these sliding doors, and it was just like this big wooden deck, and then they had a really big backyard. But there was nobody outside. It wasn't like there was a fire pit or anything. We were pretty much the only 2 people outside. I think one guy had gone outside to pee, but he went back in. So he and I are just sitting on the back deck, drinking our drinks. And the way the house was set up, it was kind of like a corner lot, and the house was kind of like at an angle on the property. So we're sitting back there, and I see a couple cars pull up in front of the house, and I'm thinking, like, oh, that's rookie move. They're gonna park right in front of the house. Somebody's gonna have to tell them to move. But then, like older men, like not old, but like middle-aged men got out, and I realized, I think those are cops. And then like 2 fully marked squad cars pulled up, and I looked over at Billy Bob, and Billy Bob was already looking at me, and we realized the party is about to get raided. So we knew that the general way that they did this was they would send a couple officers around to the back about the same time that the rest were going to the front. That way, after the police entered the party, if anybody tried to run out the back, they'd be caught by the people out back. So we knew that there was about to be a couple officers heading directly to us. Like, we didn't even communicate to each other. It was just like known. We looked at each other, we looked at the backyard. It was a pretty decent run to a fence, but the fence only came to about our waist, and we knew we could jump right over that and be gone. So we dropped our drinks and booked it. And we cleared that distance from the deck to the fence in probably maybe 15 seconds flat. We hit that fence, like we vaulted up over it, put our hands on top of the fence and just launched over it. And it was about this moment that we realized we were screwed. You see, what we didn't know was the property the party was on, it was on a hill. And there was like a decent 6-7 foot drop to the ground below. This fence that only came up to about our waist, yeah, it wasn't their fence, like some decorative cute fence. It was actually the top of the people behind them's fence, which was a full length, like 8-foot fence. And we were seeing like the top, maybe 2 feet of it. So, yeah, we launched ourselves into the air up over this thing. We were probably about an additional 2 feet off of the ground on the party side. And now we got about a 6 to 7 foot drop to the ground here. We plummeted down about 9 feet, drunk, and landed, just boom, knocked the wind out of both of us. I was dazed. I landed square on my butt. He landed like sprawled out on his back. He looked like a chalk line the way he was laying out. And we were just completely dazed. I probably laid there for a good 30 to 45 seconds. He did the same. We had heard this crunch. I thought we fell into like a pile of sticks or something. When we finally kind of righted ourselves and started looking around, we landed in this weird rock garden, and there was like bird houses and bird feeders and bird baths all in this thing, and like lawn gnomes. It was basically like a birdhouse feeder bath garden. And like some of them were on stakes, some were on these like weird loopy hangy things. The bird baths were different varying heights. Like it was actually really probably pretty, but when you're landing on it from a drop of about 9 feet, it hurt. And we had broken a couple of these, and like I swear one of them was like probably wedged up my butt at one point, because like my butt, it hurt. And I look at Billy Bob, I almost said his real name. I look at Billy Bob, and he's just kind of like leaning up against the fence at this point. We managed to get up, and we start walking around to the front of the house, and thank goodness it had to have been an old person. I mean, what younger person has a garden like this? It had to be an older person, and thank goodness, because older people do tend to sleep a little hard, and if they hadn't been hard sleepers, probably would have been greeted with shotguns to our face, because this is Florida, everybody's armed here. So thankfully though, nobody woke up, nobody came out. We got to the front yard and we started walking. So now remember I told you how windy and twisty this neighborhood was? We could not find his truck anywhere. We are looking all over for his truck, and it's just gone. And it doesn't help that we're not even on the original street that we started on. We don't even know where we are right now. You would think we're just the street behind them, but all these roads are like windy and twisty. It's not that easy. We decided the best bet was to split up. So he had like a hide key that we used to keep magneted under the rear quarter panel. So the idea was, if he found the truck first, he would just use his key, start it up, drive around. He'd call me on my phone and drive around until he found me. If I found the truck first, I would use the spare key, and then I would do the same thing, call him, drive around until I found him. So we separate and we start walking. So I am determined to find this truck. But like, it's a long walk. I'm walking around for a good probably 5 minutes. I'm drunk, I'm tired, my butt hurts, I'm sore. I don't want to walk anymore. So I find this bike lying in somebody's yard, and I made a mental note of what the property looked like. It had a wraparound porch, and there was like a swing hanging in the front yard, and the building, or the mailbox, had like the house number on it. So I'm like, cool, I'll just take this bike, I'll use it until I find the truck, and then once I find the truck, I'll throw it in the back of the truck, and then we can bring it back after we're all situated. So I start riding this bike, and my foot keeps kind of slipping off the pedal, but I just chalk it up to the fact that I'm a little drunk. And I keep pedaling, and I'm fine. And then maybe about 2 or 3 minutes after I start riding the bike, this cop kind of goes past me. And I'm like, okay, just be cool. He doesn't know that you were at that party. He doesn't know you're drunk. Like, you could be out riding your bike. Cop stops up ahead, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. But I'm like, just act like you belong here. Keep your head straight ahead. Don't even look at him. Just keep pedaling. So I pedal right past him. Sure enough, he starts rolling around like right about my speed. And my foot still is slipping off the pedal every time I try. But like, I'm doing all right. I think I'm looking pretty good, right? He just thinks I'm out for a bike ride. Yeah. Window rolls down. I hear him say, excuse me, sir, can I ask you something? So I'm like, yes, officer, what can I do for you? Because, you know, I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm not riding on a stolen bike while drunk after fleeing a party, you know, no. After committing property damage, no, I'm good. So I ask him, I'm like, yes, what can I help you with? What can I do? He's like, well, you see, there was a party, and we raided it, and there was a large amount of underage drinking, and there was actually some controlled substances, and I was wondering if you knew anything about this party. And I'm like, party? No, officer, I don't party. Oh no, I don't party at all. He's like, okay, well, I kind of feel like you maybe were at that party. And I'm like, officer, I already told you, I'm just out for a bike ride. And he's like, well, you see, I feel like you were at the party, and I'm pretty sure because, I'm kind of pretty sure you're drunk right now. I'm like, officer, me drunk? Why would you possibly think I'm drunk? And he goes, you sure you haven't been drinking? I'm like, what would possibly make you think that I am drunk? And he looks at me, and he's really silent for a couple seconds. Then he goes, well, because you're riding a bike right now with a birdhouse stuck around your ankle. And I looked down, and I had put my foot right through a birdhouse and didn't even know it. And it's stuck on my ankle like a freaking bracelet, like a house arrest monitor. And I'm riding a bike, just birdhouse on my foot. So at that point, I knew it was over. I couldn't even lie anymore. I was like, you got me, officer. Take me away. But so fun fact, in Florida, a vehicle does not have to be motorized. That's a motorized vehicle. In Florida, a bicycle is considered a vehicle. And apparently, if you're riding a bike while drunk, that's a DUI, driving under the influence. So I wasn't really driving anything. I was riding a bike with a birdhouse stuck to my foot. But apparently, I was guilty of a DUI at this point. A very fun fact. Didn't know that at 17 years old. So officer proceeds to question me a little bit. He has me sitting there on the sidewalk, bike next to me. At this point, I've managed to get the birdhouse off of my foot. It's sitting next to me as well. And I look up, and there goes Billy Bob riding by in his truck. And I locked eyes with him, and I was hoping that this dude had enough sense to not stop. Thankfully, he kept riding. So that was a plus. But he definitely saw me sitting there. So the officer proceeds to tell me it's my lucky day. I am going to be given an option. I can either choose to go down to county, or I can choose to go to my parents and my house, and he'll wake my parents up. And if they A, wake up, and B, accept me in under their care for the night, then he won't do anything further. He won't put anything on my record, and he'll just let me go. But if my parents do not wake up, or they refuse to take me back in because they're mad and they're like, no, take him to jail, then he will, in fact, take me to jail. So I'm like, well, crap. I can't tell my parents I was at a party and that I'm drunk and that I stole a bike and all of this crap. Granted, the officer doesn't know that I stole the bike yet. I didn't technically steal it. I borrowed it because I had every intention of giving it back. The cop just stopped me from being able to. So I would rather go to jail. I can't tell my parents. So I think for a second, and then the officer asks me for my ID. And it was like the silver lining. You see, I went to a party once, and my wallet fell out of my pocket, and I did get it back, but by the time I got it back, all my cash was missing. So after this point, I had made a habit of whenever I went to a party, I would leave my wallet in I almost said his real name. I would leave my wallet in Billy Bob's truck. My wallet with my ID in it was currently in Billy Bob's truck. So I told the officer, in all honesty, that I don't have my ID, but I could give him my name and he could look it up. Now here's the thing. Me and Billy Bob, we didn't look identical, but we looked very similar. Similar enough that me lit up by nothing but the moonlight, and him via just a driver's license photo being pulled up on a police officer's laptop, yeah, we would totally pass as the same person. So I gave him Billy Bob's name, and I gave him Billy Bob's address because I knew it off the top of my head. And sure enough, the officer believed it was me. And he threw my bike into the back of his car, put me up in the front seat, and drove me to Billy Bob's house. So we get to Billy Bob's house, and I'm very relieved to see his truck is in the driveway. And we walk up to the door and knock on the door, and Billy Bob's mom answers the door. And before she could say anything, I say, "Hi, Mom," so that she knows what's up. And she answers, and she's like, "Hi, son." And that's a ride or die right there, because she probably knew, This kid could have given any first name. He obviously said that he's my son, but did he use his real first name and just our last name? Or did he make up a name? Or did he use Billy Bob's name? She didn't know. So she just referred to me as son. So she A, thought on her feet, and B, was a ride or die and was willing to go down for it. So she just replied, hi, son, which was amazing. But I go, hi, mom, before she could say anything. She assesses the situation. She says, hi, son. The officer tells her that he found her son fleeing an underage drinking party while riding my bike with a birdhouse stuck to my foot. And she seems half amused, half disappointed in me. But she accepts me back in, and obviously she tells the officer I will be in very big trouble. And the officer goes and fetches my bike, and we come in. I proceed to listen to, and Billy Bob, me and Billy Bob both proceed to listen to a very stern lecture for about maybe 2 hours. Now, she wasn't mad that we were at the party or that we were drinking. She was just mad that, A, we intended to drive home drunk, but what were we supposed to do? Say, oh, we're too drunk to drive, we might as well just stay here and get arrested for drinking underage? So I don't really think that, like, we made the lesser of two evils right there, I think. But she was also upset that we didn't just leave the party and then go hunker down somewhere and call for her or Billy Bob's dad to come get us. Okay, I could give her that one. She was also disappointed after we explained how a birdhouse got stuck to my ankle. She was disappointed that we broke this lady's stuff. And then she wanted to know where the bike came from, and when I explained, she was very disappointed in that as well. So we finally got to bed around 2 in the morning. And then she woke us up at like 5 a.m. She had hot coffee, but that was it. And we were hungover, and we were tired, and we were grouchy, and she woke us up because it was time to put our cash together because we were going to go back to the house whose bird feeder bath house garden we destroyed. We were going to leave money on her door for her with an apology note, and then we were going to return the bike. So a quick look on MapQuest, we relocated the house that the party was at, found the house directly behind it, got the address. Her mom puts it into her actual Garmin GPS. Back in the day we had an actual GPS. Remember, this was 12 years ago. We drive to the proper house. Me and Billy Bob, we had put $50 cash each into an envelope, and we wrote an apology note. We stuck it on the lady's door. Then we drove around until I could find the house that I took the bike from so we could put the bike back. Yeah, I could not find that house. Now that I was a little bit more alert, I noticed that every single house had a wraparound porch and a swing out front. It was impossible. So I just finally picked a house at random, and I was like, there it is. And we pulled up, and I just left the bike in some random yard. So if you're watching this and you ever had a bike taken out of your yard in Central Florida around 2007, this would have been in October, I apologize. Now you know what happened to it, so sorry. But yeah, so we just left the bike in some random yard, and then we got to go back home, and we got to go to sleep again. But yeah, so that was the time that I came this close to apparently being arrested for a DUI. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you guys think that you party or not, but until you've ever ended up drunk with a birdhouse up your butt and another birdhouse stuck around your ankle, I don't think that you've ever truly partied. So as always, thank you for watching. This is your boy Johnny, aka Crew 90, and I'll catch you next time.